What if one of the biggest things slowing your recovery is your definition of safety? See, most people think safety means feeling calm, comfortable, and symptom free. So they spend all of their time avoiding anything that triggers pain, symptoms, emotions, anxiety, or uncertainty. But what if that avoidance is actually teaching your nervous system that these experiences are dangerous? If walking triggers symptoms, they stop walking. If emotions arise, they distract themselves. If hard conversations happen, they avoid them. And while that avoidance will bring you temporary relief, it's actually going to reinforce fear and danger in your brain that is perpetuating your chronic symptoms. So healing is not about avoiding discomfort. Healing is about teaching your nervous system that discomfort doesn't equal danger. And by approaching healing in this way, it's going to change everything for you. That's why my definition of safety is very different. Safety means you have the capacity to be present and regulated with your experience. When you feel safe, you can interact with physical sensations, movements, stimuli, environments, and relationships with openness and curiosity. And that means safety is often about doing the next hard step. Safety is really about reducing avoidance. So, an important step in healing neuroplastic pain and symptoms is starting to approach movements and activities again that you've been fearfully avoiding. And you've probably been avoiding these because you're worried they're going to cause a flare up. But starting to approach movements and activities, I'll be honest, it's going to feel unpleasant at first. But over time, it's going to teach your nervous system that you're safe to re engage in life. And that is such a freeing feeling. Now, at the end of me having debilitating chronic pain almost a decade ago, I was bedbound and I wasn't leaving my house. So the first movement I had to work on was walking. At first, I would just practice walking for 3 to 5 minutes in my apartment while doing somatic work with my pain. And then I would go on short walks with my friends for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And a few months in, I was walking almost up to an hour. I taught my nervous system that walking was safe. But when I was first walking, it was really scary to do. And it did cause pain at first. And so I just want to really have you understand it was unpleasant at first, but it was an action that led to so much safety in my nervous system. Another important step in healing is learning to approach your symptoms and difficult emotions in your body. Most of us are good at thinking. We're good at problem solving, intellectualizing, rationalizing things away. But thinking is not going to result in you fully healing. We need to learn to approach unpleasant sensations within pain, symptoms, emotions, nervous system states. And so when I was healing, I would spend 20 to 30 minutes lying in bed and I would practice dropping into my body, exploring sensations, allow them to take place, and create safety with them. And over several months, something remarkable happened. My internal experience, even though it was unpleasant sometimes still, it wasn't as overwhelming. I felt safer with these unpleasant sensations within. But it happened not through avoidance. It happened through me approaching my internal experience. Sometimes safety means expressing your emotions to other people. Now, I just talked about feeling your emotions, and a lot of you are probably pretty terrified to feel your emotions, and I get that. But expressing our emotions to other people, anger, resentment, hurt, guilt, that feels really scary. Expressing our emotions, telling someone how we feel or how they hurt us. And I get that. I was terrified to do that, and I avoided expressing my emotions for a long time in my life. Now, with my partner, Anne, I often just kept the peace. And if I was hurt by something, I was resentful at her, I wouldn't tell her. And this built up a lot of dysregulation inside over time and was one of the reasons that my pain was triggered in the first place and was perpetuated. And that's not on Anne. That was on me because I wasn't expressing. And so I remember when I was healing, I was maybe 3 or 4 months in, and Anne wanted to change her job. And the job change was going to have us relocate to a different city. And inside, I did not want to do this. It was the last thing. Like the city that we were moving to, I won't name it, but it sucks. I don't want to move there. I have no interest. I have no friends or family. And I felt all of that and I didn't express it. So when she brought it up, I told her, sure, we can do that. I had very loose boundaries back then. And the resentment inside built and built and built over time. And so one of the key points in my healing was me telling Anne, I'm not doing that. I'll support your career in other ways, but I'm not willing to move. And I remember that was a very emotional conversation. And I think Anne was a bit in shock too, because I often kept the peace. I didn't, express how she might have hurt me throughout our entire relationship. And now all of a sudden I was doing it. So she's learned to adjust over time. But I'm just saying that expression of emotion created so much safety over time in our relationship. Our relationship was more honest. It was built in trust. It was built in vulnerability. And that safety was created by me approaching, expressing myself to her. Sometimes safety is about setting a boundary. How many of you listening have loose boundaries? You just go with the flow. You never put your own needs first. I get it. I remember doing that in my relationship with Anne and also with my family. I avoided setting boundaries because whenever I did it, it was really unpleasant. I felt anxious, guilty, ashamed. And so I just avoided it. But setting boundaries teaches your nervous system that your needs matter, that your needs can come first sometimes. And so it's a really important safety signal that we need to do in order to heal our pain and symptoms. Now, a bigger one that I set, I was actually out of pain at this point, but I was still working on boundary setting. And I remember my mom asked me to go to a family reunion and she wanted me to bring Anne and my kids. Now, I was happy to do that usually, but it lined up right in between two big trips. I had a trip with my kids, and then I had a work trip I had to go on. And so even as she asked me, I just already felt overwhelmed. I knew it was too much for me. Now, this was hard because it was my mom's family reunion. I know that that's really important to her. I know her and she wants me to go and she wants to show me off, which I don't mind, but I knew it was important to her, but I knew inside I can't do this. This is just too much. And so I set the boundary. And I felt some guilt. My mom was a bit disappointed, but I explained it and she got it. And over time, those boundaries have created healthier relationships for me. A healthier relationship with my mom, with my dad, with other family or friends. And so, again, safety comes from approaching and setting boundaries in your life to show your nervous system that your needs matter. Sometimes safety is about making a significant life change. Maybe you hate your job. Maybe your relationship is no longer healthy. Maybe your lifestyle no longer aligns with who you are. We need to be really honest about this. I know life changes are scary to make, but sometimes they are essential to heal and they're essential to create long-lasting safety in your nervous system. Now, when I healed my chronic pain, I was working at a job that was super laid back. And to be honest, it was a pretty good place for me to land when I was healing because there wasn't a lot of stress. It was like a 40-hour-a-week job. I think probably 20 hours of it was just like hanging out with coworkers and having fun. So it was a great job. I'm smiling because it was a lot of good memories in that time. But after about a year, I felt incredibly bored inside. I felt unfulfilled. I felt no sense of purpose with what I was doing. And so that feeling lingered for a long time, for about 4 or 5 months before I decided like I can't stay here. I knew myself, if I had stayed there for another year or two, I would just go into a state of depression and feeling shut down. And so I needed to make a life change. And so I decided to go and do my graduate degree. And I got in, and I remember feeling terrified. I was like, oh no, my whole life is turning upside down right now. And I knew my graduate degree to become a therapist was the right move for me. I knew that this was going to make me feel way more fulfilled long term. It was going to make me help people in a way that I didn't know how to yet. And so I knew I needed to do it, but there was a lot of fear. And I just want to say that that is normal. Any life change is going to feel dysregulating while you do it. And for the first month or two of my master's, I was really dysregulated. Well, let's be honest, maybe 4 or 5 months in, I was still dysregulated. But after I graduated and eventually got a new job, I knew it was the right move. I felt safer. I felt more fulfilled in my career. But I had to go through that unpleasantness during my graduate degree to get to the life that I wanted. And so life changes are probably one of the scarier ones that people put off, but they really do matter. And they're a great way to teach your nervous system safety. And sometimes safety is about letting go of old coping mechanisms that no longer serve you. Perfectionism, high achieving, people pleasing, excessive control, excessive conscientiousness. You developed these in the past when you faced danger, and you've developed them so that you could survive. But now they're no longer serving you. And in fact, all of these coping mechanisms will fuel chronic pain and chronic symptoms. And so we need to shift these. Now, this is interestingly deceptive because most people think, oh, letting go of perfectionism, great. Like that's no longer serving me. I'm just going to let it go and move on. No, that's not going to be the process. Because as you start to reduce, for example, your perfectionistic behaviors, it's going to feel very unpleasant and uncomfortable. It's going to probably trigger a lot of anxiety, guilt, or shame. And so at first, as you reduce coping mechanisms, it is unpleasant and you are not going to feel safe. Long term, it's going to help you interact in your world with more safety on board in your nervous system. So we, again, need to make it through the unpleasantness to get to this deeper, lasting feeling of safety. Now, for myself, I am a recovering perfectionist. And I remember in my master's degree that I just talked about for social work, I got into perfectionism in a real dark way. Everything was urgent, such high expectations and pressure. I constantly felt in fight or flight. And after I finished my master's, I knew I can't keep interacting in the world with perfectionism. It's just not working for me. And so I started to do the work of interacting in the world differently. I started to work differently, approach career opportunities or projects differently. I let go of the pressure and the intensity and go with the flow a bit more. And it was bumpy, but over time, I was able to let go of perfectionism more and more. And now I enjoy work, for example, in a much deeper way. I get a lot of meaning and purpose from work, where in the past I was just in fight or flight about work. So I was successful, but I was miserable. Now I'm successful and I'm enjoying myself. And that's the difference, is by me doing the hard work of reducing my perfectionism, I have so much more joy and passion for my job. And with all the examples I just went through, none of them necessarily feel calm. In fact, a lot of them probably feel really scary, but they're still an act of safety because they help move your life towards greater authenticity, connection, and regulation. Remember, safety is about doing the next hard and necessary step. So I want you all to stop asking, what do I need to do to feel calm? And instead start asking, what is the next hard step my nervous system is asking me to take? Because real safety is not about avoiding discomfort. Real safety is about learning that you can approach and handle discomforts. And that's one of the most powerful nervous system lessons you can learn. Take care.